So yes, once again, welcome everyone to our, sorry, I'm just going to mute these notifications for a moment so you don't hear my beeping. Welcome everybody to our Green Procurement and Waste Management Global Info session today. We have some very fantastic speakers that will be presenting what they're doing on waste estimation, how they're doing it, and we hope that this will give you some good insights to learn. So before we start, we would just like to ask you where you're joining us from today. I can see everybody's putting it in the chat as well, but we'll launch a small poll, and if you can please let us know. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes. Oh, I see Ireland as the first one. I'm not very far from there. Great, Venezuela. Muy bien. Ukraine, Lebanon, Germany, Sudan. Great. Very nice to see a large representation of regions this afternoon, because I think sometimes due to the time difference we can't always have our Latin American colleagues join. So really good to see you all here. So the agenda for today is the one you can see on the screen. So first we'll be giving a brief overview of why we're doing this session, why we're speaking about waste estimation, and also how it links into procurement. So we'll give you a bit of the background and context on that. Then after that, we have three fantastic speakers that are joining us. So from UK Palladium, from WFP Venezuela, and from PIRAC French Red Cross. So each one of them are doing or have been estimating waste due to different reasons, so different purposes, and also following a unique approach. And we wanted to have them all join today so that you get three different ways of actually doing this and to learn from them as well. We will then have a dedicated time for Q&A and discussion. So what we would like to ask you is to start, if you do have questions as we have our speakers presenting, please add them in the chat or even, just write them down. And in the end, when we have the Q&A and discussion, that's when we can bring those questions. So we won't be, let's say, answering the questions during the presentation, because what we want to do is really have a larger discussion at the end or at the second half of the session. And after that, we'll just have a quick wrap up and next steps. So I will now hand over to Marta. Marta is our waste management specialist from the WREC. Somebody?
Qui va envoyer prendre 2 minutes?
I'm trying to silence.
Yeah, we need to.
Si t'envoies 32, ça va me couper.
There.
I don't see
okay, Marta, I'll hand over to you now. And Marta will give us an overview of waste estimation and procurement.
Thank you, Paula, and good afternoon, good morning to everyone. Yeah, let me maybe take control. Yeah, so we wanted to start the session by answering the question why it's important to measure waste from our operations. So the waste that is generated in our warehouses, maybe from our fleet management, in our offices, in distribution points, and also understanding also the advantages that can bring the measuring waste to our operations. So we have organized it in 6 points. The first advantage is that measuring our waste helps us to understand our waste. So this means to know the type of materials of our waste. So if we talk about cardboards or plastics, different type of plastics, we can also have stocks that may be damaged or expired. When we manage our fleet, so the waste, common waste we usually have to deal is with batteries, used oil, tires, And then also we include here other hazardous waste from our operations that are electronic devices like generators or laptops or printers, or also other kind of electronic devices that we use for our work. And it comes with this idea that we cannot manage what we don't know. So that would be the first advantage of knowing this information. Knowing the quantities and the types also helps the organizations to start thinking of alternative ways to manage waste instead of disposing into landfill, and following this hierarchy of waste that I'm sure that we've presented many times, and looking for options like reuse or recycling that usually also bring advantages for the organization, because you can save resources. Sometimes you can also generate revenues. So that could be the second advantage. And the third one is that the information from the quantities and the types is an essential data that can help planning your waste management systems in your operations. Not only defining the activities, but also the budget and the resources that may be needed for that. You can size the storage area. You can also identify how much and how big maybe containers or areas that you need to dedicate for that. And having a waste management system in place also allows to systematically remove the waste from your warehouses or from your premises, allowing a more efficient operations, but also maybe freeing a space for storing and also saving resources from this end. Also, that's an important advantage, and it will be discussed today. It's knowing the waste types and quantities also helps to define strategies for waste reduction. For instance, if we know from our relief items the associated packaging, tertiary, secondary packaging that is made, and we start establishing discussions with our suppliers to modify, to reduce, for instance, the amount of packaging that is that these items are or that the supplier provides with these items. It can generate a baseline from where we can also measure some kind of waste reduction once items are provided with less packaging. The information also from types of and volumes of waste that we need to move in our operations also can be used as an advocacy to advocate with our donors for resources. So we know that electric and electronic waste or fleet waste, it has a cost that we have to pay to manage unless we have the resources in place, not only for treating this waste, but also for transporting. We think about operations in remote areas that has no access to these facilities, but needs to be transported. So unless we have budget for some of these activities, then it will be difficult to manage. So providing more detailed information on quantities and types can also justify better the needs for additional resources. And the final advantage it's that having a system in place where that helps to responsibly manage your waste also helps to comply your environmental policies from your organization, from your donors, and also from the local government where we are operating. And it helps to save resources in general, and also contribute to the local economy in case that we are recovering these resources instead of landfilling it into the municipality landfills. And the second thing I wanted to share, and with this I will finish and will give the floor to our speakers, is the methods and tools to measure waste. This topic was discussed during the coordination working group on waste management. And we identified 4 main methods for measuring waste. The first one, it's more when operations are already ongoing. and we have waste in our warehouses, and we have already segregated our waste, and we are tracking. So the information can come directly from our dashboards, where we have the waste from every type and also for every month. The second type of method is waste characterization, and this is for the cases of operations where we generate waste, but we do not segregate it, and we collect it all together and we just dispose. A waste characterization is just analyzing a sample that tells you information on the composition. From here, you can extrapolate total quantities per month or per year. And here you have the links of the guideline, and also we dedicated one information session on this topic, so you can also have the link and look at it. Another method is the waste estimation, and this is what we are going to talk about today, waste estimation through our procurement plans. And here we have already some tools that was developed. The first one is from a joint initiative, that it's waste packaging calculator. It was more for packaging from food items. And then also the PIRAC of French Red Cross calculator that will be also presented today, that it's more focused on the non-relief items. And finally, we have the waste estimations by metrics. This is something quite new, that it came from the working group. And there was a request that why we do not develop metrics from our humanitarian sectors, from where we can easily estimate waste from, for instance, how much waste a vehicle generates per year in the sense of number of tires, used oil per car or per kilometer. The same for office, so how much waste per square meter or per worker, and the same for warehouses. So all the information from the methods and which is the best method to use, you can see it in this decision tree, and you can have a look. You can have a look at this document, and it will help to navigate on the best methods. Saying that, Paola, I'll stop here, and we can give the floor to our speakers for today.
Thank you, Marta. And maybe just to add also, I mean, one of the main advantages, right, of doing this from your procurement plan, or when you're planning to purchase goods and services, is to basically avoid having additional waste in your supply chain, so you can reduce it from the beginning. And you can also have some type of contingency plan on how to manage it once you do have to manage that waste. But I will now hand over to our first speaker. So we have Mark Quinn, who is joining us from Palladium. He's a supply chain manager, and he will be presenting to us, how he's been doing it, and some learnings, and also how you can potentially follow a similar approach as he has. So thank you so much, Mark, for being here today and for participating, and I'll hand over the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Paola. I am, I've just recently moved from supply chain manager to, what do they call me now? A supply chain R&D specialist is what they're calling me now, which hopefully means I can do a bit more environmental work in my day-to-day, hopefully. I'm on the Humanitarian and Stabilization Operations team, which is a team that works exclusively for the UK FCDO. On a contract that's currently managed by Palladium. So I'm currently employed by Palladium, work at the direction of FCDO, and kind of represent neither, really. We're a small team. We've no environmental specialists. So it's just really two of us who have an interest in advancing these kind of work streams, which is good in a way because it makes us very focused on what we do. We don't have a lot of time to kind of think about X or Y. We just have to think very deeply and then commit ourselves to a path. What we do generally is rapid response to sudden onset disasters. So that means we move quickly and we move globally. And we tend, I suppose the idea is that we would go through cycles of response, heavy activity, and then we move into a period of replenishment. And sometimes we can have up to 5 responses at a time, and sometimes we can have no responses at a time. So generally speaking, recently it's meant that we work in a very short and sharp burst of activity, and then we have time to replenish and get stocks back into the stockpiles. The UK stockpiles spread over United Kingdom, UAE, and Antigua. And I would say that being a small team as well makes us all agile, which means I've worked on the procurement end, the kind of movement end and the air charter. I've worked in the warehousing end, and I've been in the field on various responses. So I get a good view of everything as well, as a lot of our team do. Our work on estimating waste focuses on FCDO's catalogue of currently 11 core relief items. Things like blankets, coverage kits, kitchen sets, and so on. So we do a lot of other procurement, but we procure those items and keep those items in stockpile. We have framework agreements for them, and we have close relationships with the suppliers of these commodities, so we have a lot more control over them. So I've got to start my stopwatch. I'll try not to speak for too long. So the general purpose and why this kind of waste measuring for plastic waste came up was the introduction of plastic packaging tax laws in the UK in 2022. The laws, as we read into them, don't apply to us because you would need to import more than 10 tons of plastic packaging on its own or containing items, which we do not. But we did figure that we may be asked to demonstrate our compliance with this, so we would have to undertake some measuring. Thinking about it environmentally and in terms of an environmental strategy as well, we considered that if suppliers are being required to supply this information to us or to other suppliers in the UK, we should ask for it on a blanket basis for all of our commodities, and we could build up a database using that. So suppliers were completely supportive. There was no pushback whatsoever. They knew they would need to do this in certain cases, so it wasn't an issue for them. To give form, yeah, I suppose if you talk about downstream packaging waste from here where I sit in Gloucestershire in the UK, it's very nebulous. You know, we talk about downstream packaging waste. What does that mean? With this data gathering, we can now say, well, in our last response, that meant that we moved 167 kilograms of plastic packaging from X place to Y place, and that was broken down is this much LDPE film and this much polypropylene banding. So it makes it kind of something more solid that we can talk about. The idea is, I can't say that it has yet, is that it would inform planning for waste management downstream. So again, you can use those figures to tell people further down the stream from us. We generally go up to the port of entry with the core relief items and hand them over to an implementing agency or INGO. So ideally, we would like to be able to tell them, well, what we're giving you in terms of a donation includes this much plastic packaging broken down between this type and amount. Set a baseline for future packaging reduction measures, and this comes up later in the learnings. It's something I wish we thought about in the very beginning, because we were kind of before, during, and after implementing this data capture. We were trying to reduce the amount of plastic we had in our core relief items. If we'd been capturing this data from the beginning, we would have been able to better say how successful those kind of reduction measures were. Well, the kitchen set bought 5 years ago had this much plastic, and since our measures now, look at our data, it's got this much plastic in it. Very little. And again, linked to informing the planning, informing early discussion and a sudden onset response as well. So we can speak very quickly from a position of kind of quantified waste. Strategic element then, how does this sit into our overall strategy of plastic waste management, plastic packaging waste management specifically? Our idea is that we reduce, recycle, quantify, identify, and recycle. Reduce, pretty straightforward. I imagine most people on this call have been reducing plastic packaging waste in their operations for quite some time. Recyclable, that is trying to make sure that plastic packaging fits within the standard 6 types of plastic. So an example of where we've done that is our bales for our tarpaulins previously were made of an LDPE or DPE composite material made from apparently leftover material, although the suppliers would have to have insane amounts of leftover material to be making all of the packaging from this. We changed this to LDPE bags, which we believe to be more recyclable, although again, we're yet to see the proof of the pudding in getting this right down the supply chain. Quantify, what we're talking about now, and what we'll move on to properly in a moment. Identify, I'll show you an example of this as well, just making sure that the plastic packaging is identifiable in terms of what it is, and then recycled, that it is actually recycled. And the key tool for that we see as being the WREC downstream waste mapping, to kind of map what we know is coming to who we know can deal with it. Can I click on? I can. So this is what that looks like. The quantification looks like in practice. We start from 7 o'clock special conditions. So we've written into our special terms and conditions above and beyond our standard terms and conditions that suppliers will give us information on the type and amount of plastic packaging tax in line with what we're required to do for the UK tax authorities, which just happens to align with our strategy. At 4 o'clock, then we have the table that we put into our purchase orders. And that's kind of the last thing at the very bottom of the purchase order for suppliers to fill in. Interestingly, going through some of this stuff, and again, I think it's just catching one of the learnings at this stage in the talk is we put all these systems in place and then we walk away and then we assume they work. And when I came back to look at some of these things to put together for this, there's a lot of issues that developed. So it needs constant policing. So where we see in 4 o'clock PORF, that's a big merged cell that was transposed into our table at the top, which basically meant the data was pretty useless because merged cells are not good in a table. Then we have the main table, 12 o'clock, and we can use that to calculate how much plastic packaging we're importing into the UK, whether or not it has 30% of recycled content, which is what it needs to be exempt from counting. And then we also have our other stockpile in UAE, wherever it goes directly into stockpile, we have a count. The key column there is the second column, it's PORF, but we use our PORF as our batch. So when it comes to sending stuff out, our batch ref is our PORF in that case. Filtered by that column. In the middle there somewhere we have unit weight. So we multiply by the number of units, and then that will tell us how much plastic we have coming downstream. Feel free to take a screenshot of this if it's useful, or I'm happy to share the template. But I mean, I think people are pretty capable of making a Excel table. It's nothing special or fancy, and I don't know. I only ever hear people giving out about Excel, although I love Excel. Well, maybe I'm the problem, I guess. Okay, moving along. So on the left is what we said about it being identifiable. Again, small little issues that we noticed in that going through for this, getting it ready for this talk. The top picture there has 01 polyethylene identified, and number 7 type other in the triangle, which is what we recommend to suppliers, although we don't mandate. And it tells us what it is. The straps are PET and the bales are other. And on the right there is just a kind of an allusion to the items themselves. We're focused very much on the packaging because the packaging is a large quantity of waste that basically remains in the control of us and our partners, whereas the items themselves obviously go into use, hopefully get used for many, many years. And are not quite so easy to recover in a bulk manner, but we do. So what you see there in the center picture is the little resin identification code, which we worked with our supplier to have included on their mold for Lifesaver water filter cubes, and the same on buckets. So that's much harder to see in that picture. Challenges: ensuring the supply data is usable and relevant, and that's a bedding down issue with suppliers. So they mightn't tell us, they might tell us pieces of plastic that are in the items. That was one thing that was in that table that I had to take out. They might give us measures that don't quite translate right. We need item weights, ideally, but they will give kind of pieces or pallets or bales or whatever. So making sure that that's translatable into units, which is what we need. Reliance on downstream actors who have a variety of priorities, and that's about getting the discussion of waste management in the room in a disaster response, which is incredibly difficult and is not a challenge that I can say we've managed to overcome at this stage. And oh no, that was the next one. Sorry, what was the downstream actors? Yeah, again, I think it's just about people who have interest and bandwidth and time to respond, particularly in a disaster when people have a lot of issues. Competent authorities, again, same thing, they're not always available in a disaster response. Contamination of different waste types, that's the picture there. While we think of our kind of cling wrap as being rather clean, it gets wrapped around the pallets come into storage and they go out to the field and then it's cut off. It's easy to forget from a desk the amount of kind of branding, identification labels, all of that stuff that we're putting on that might make this quite unappealing to a waste recycler at the end. I want to mention at the bottom, Hurricane Melissa was the first response in which plastic packaging data was made available to response teams, but not. It didn't really go a lot further than that, I don't think, on this occasion. The learnings, we deal, as I said, with a small number of global suppliers on framework agreements. So, I mean, that's relatively straightforward for us. And we're also dealing with that limited number of 11 core relief items. That's a very small, manageable piece compared to some of the diverse procurement that goes on in the sector. Active management, I've kind of referred to. You need to keep an eye on everything. You also need to keep an eye on the suppliers. When we're procuring, we do contract inspection companies because we can't really go out and look at every procurement ourselves. But we then need to really scrutinize those reports and make sure that everything is being complied with, and that can mean looking for a lot of detail sometimes. Plastic format as well as type is important. That's just something we learned. We were concerned with whether it was LDPE, and then finding out that actually whether it's LDPE wrap or some other form of LDPE is very important as well. Avoid flexible wording. That's one of our key lessons in everything that we've done with suppliers. If you give an out, the out will probably be taken. You need to be very prescriptive in what you want, and then you can be compromising afterwards very easily. CRI commodities require a different approach. It's starting again. Again, mentioned we would. Oh no, sorry. This is where we would also require an emissions factor. We've now got that for most of our CRI commodities in some form or another, but that gives us kind of the total impact. Well, it doesn't give us a total impact, but it gives us a good impact figure for these commodities. Yeah, I think I've talked enough. I've probably gone over time. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, Mark. Definitely a very interesting case to look into detail, and also a lot of, I would say, like tips and learnings that you come out. It's very interesting. The advice of start working with few suppliers and engaging these suppliers to start requesting them the data on the packaging, primary or secondary, tertiary packaging that relief items that you're procuring are incorporates. And also very interesting the information or the advice that the information of the type of plastics, it needs to be specified, no? Because then when the downstream teams get the items, and then this waste is generated at that level, it can facilitate also the management and understanding to who they have to maybe call, and maybe also how they have to manage properly this packaging. So yeah, it would be very useful if you can share the template. I think that would be yeah, a good asset for starting, so other organizations, they don't also have to build it. So thanks so much, Mark. We will. I see there is a question in the chat box from Alice, is asking if the items that you are procuring is mostly food or non-food items.
Yeah, non-food, non-medical, and with exemption for hygiene products. So we make sure we include plastic and hygiene products as necessary.
Great. Okay, thanks so much, Mark. We will go to the next speaker. Of course, if you have more questions that come up from the presentation of Mark, if you can write them in the chat box, we will, or he can also in the meantime support and provide some answers. So the next guests are from WFP in Venezuela. You may know them because we have invited them in several sessions, but every time for a different perspective of the work they do. In this case, we wanted to hear from them how they also, their methods of estimating their waste in order to plan their operations on reverse logistics. So we have Juan Carlos San Martin, that's a logistics associate, working very closely with Ernesto Castellanos, that's environmental sustainability specialist in the admin unit. and they are kind of the champions of the in the team. Yeah, I can't extend myself, so I'm just giving you the floor to present also your initiative.
Well, thank you. Good morning and good afternoon too. My name is Juan Carlos San Martin, the focal point for contracting and service provision here in Venezuela. And this is my colleague, Ernesto Castellanos, the focal point for sustainability. It's a pleasure for us to explain the reverse logistics system that allows recycling solid materials in Venezuela at no cost. First, I want to start with a little bit of history that you can understand the operation here in BECO. BECO is Venezuela Country Office. The Venezuela office is relatively new. It began operations in 2021 with a school feeding program. Our work started with a logistic hub in Maracaibo, as you can see in the screen, is highlighted in green. And we served to Falcon Estate. At the end of 2021, we made our first expansion in the west side of the country, adding Barinas and Trujillo. In 2022, we made our second expansions and start operations in the east side of the country, in Sucre, del Tamacuro, and Suategui and Monagas estates. And from our beginning in 2021 until December of 2023, we distribute 42,000 of metric tons of food. For 1 second, just imagine the amount of solid waste that we generate in those years. For us, that was our number, our turning point. We realized that we have to do something different. We realized that we have to do something to recycle. And our main goal was very clear from the beginning. We must recycle at zero cost. At the end of 2023, I think that the addition of Ernesto to the team was a key to achieve that. Next, please. Well, how did we do it? It was not easy because our main challenge is that in Venezuela, it's not a country where recycle is common. Most of the people do not recycle. There are few recycling suppliers with national coverage and experience. But this doesn't stop us. It pushes us to search harder across the country. So we first launched an expression of interest to identify suppliers with experience and national reach. We visited their facilities and checked their documents and process. As you can see in the screen, that is Ernesto talking with Mr. Vitali, that is the owner of Vitambiente, a supplier, in his warehouse in Carabobo Estates. For me, this second step is the cornerstone of the project because we ask our legal team in Rome to add a contract clause that allow us to move solid material waste at no cost. And we include this clause in all our transport contracts. As you can see in the presentation, the clause says WFP may request support to return pallets or recyclable materials on trucks that are going back empty to the hub. We also prepared a request for quotation. We launched a competitive process. We made an opening ceremony. We reviewed the offers and we award the best option in terms of cost and operations. And finally, we shared the plan with our field team to put it into action. Next, please. Well, how the system works. As you can see in the screen, our hub now is located in the middle of the country, is highlighted in orange, and we have operations in secondary warehouses in the state highlighted in blue. We plan our weekly load schedules, and heavy trucks leave from the hub to deliver food in our secondary warehouses. Some of these trucks come back empty to the hub for another load and repeat the distribution process. Our colleagues in the field ask the driver if he is returning empty to the hub. If the answer is positive, we also ask if he can transport our recyclable material. The only condition that we have is that this waste material must be cleaned and must be well organized. And well, you maybe are thinking, in my country is different, maybe that works in Venezuela. I don't need that my trucks return to my home in my country. Here in Venezuela, it's basically the same. We can use, I don't know, 50, 60 trucks per distribution per month, but only 2 or 3 of these trucks needs to return empty to the hub. These 2 or 3 trucks are enough for us for do our recycling program. Also, and this is very important, the transport supplier feels part of this program, and they inform us when they have trucks that are not part of WSP operations, but they are available in the area to load for free and go to the hub. As you can see also in the presentation, what we have achieved, well, 73 metric tons has been recycled in almost 2 years without any cost. We reduce 60 metric tons of CO2 in the environment, and we have generated almost $12,000 from the sale of recycled material. And you may be wondering, well, it's not a lot of money. Here in Venezuela, we can use this kind of money, for example, for pay 6 months of forklift services in one warehouse, or we can pay for 6 months of salary for a storekeeper in one warehouse, or we can use 350 manpower services operators per month in our hub. For us, is a lot of money. Next, please. And maybe you are thinking too, how we calculate this data? Well, it was not easy to. First, we weigh every single package of food that we use in our distributions, because we have several suppliers for the same commodity. As you can see in the screen, we weigh and classify every single package manually. We do it in our hub. And then we use data and calculators from the United States Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, and we calculate our emissions. As you can see in the table, we know how is the weight, for example, from the salt in 3 different presentations, or the pasta or rice, or everything that we distribute. Next, please.
Can you see the? Yeah,
Now,
okay.
yes. Now the waste estimation tool. We ask ourselves the following question: do we know the amount of waste our trucks transport? Now, in this moment, the answer is yes. How do we do it? We implement a solution digital for waste management and to support reverse logistics account. Using food shipment data, and we cross-reference this with the master data obtained on the packaging characterization. Then, using the Tableau, we obtain the tool that we see on the screen. This tool enables us to anticipate the amount of waste transported by our trucks, predict the volume of recyclable waste, and efficiently plan our supply chain operations. In this way, we are aware of the waste we generate, while at the same time, we can compare it with the waste we recycle and detect gaps between the 2 indicators in order to correct any deviation. It's a continuous improvement process, thus promoting an increasingly sustainable supply chain.
Well, we developed this tool because we know how much food our trucks carry and the amount of solid waste material that they transport. And this tool allows to predict how much solid waste material we recycle, and we can plan our operation. For closing, what we have learned, well, the main lesson that we learned is that everything is possible when there is will to do it. For me, the most important lesson is that we must to see our transporters as real allies, as our partners, because they have the capacity to carry out this kind of operations and programs. We also need to build in a trust with the supplier, because this is the key. It took us several years, but we finally did it. And finally, we also learned that we could apply our reverse logistics system in any WFP program, as you can see in the presentation. For example, during recent floods in Zulia State, in the Boscan community, we support the population in the emergency, and at the same time, we use our reverse logistics system to coordinate the recycled materials of the food that we distribute. And we recycle 104 kilograms of carbon, 10 kilos of plastic, and we can reduce 106 kilograms of CO2. Thank you so much. That was our presentation.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Juan and Ernesto. I think this is a great example of, as you said, when there's a will, there's a way. So it's about wanting to do it. And, you know, just as you were saying, the last one, it's in an emergency, right? We always hear a lot of, you know, that there's difficulties to actually do this during an emergency, but it is possible. I mean, it has happened. And, you know, equally at the moment we're in right now with Hurricane Melissa, I know that, you know, Mark has been also doing a lot of effort to avoid waste with items that are being sent. So these are already two very good examples that you can actually do this during an emergency, which is, you know, excellent work. And I think, you know, just reiterating as well, the tool that you have, you developed it. I mean, you use Tableau. It's not an expensive or, you know, tool developed by somebody else that you would have to invest in. So, you know, it's just helping you understand how you can actually predict that waste. And that's something that, you know, that is more easily achievable as well. And I admire a lot the effort that you took to actually look at every single package, and you weighed it and you tried to estimate what that packaging equals in terms of waste. So thank you so much for sharing this with us. And I think, yes, we'll keep, I know that there's a question in the chat. I'll just keep the question for the final part of the session after the presentations. So now I will introduce you to our next and final speakers. And we have Natalia Corro and Matthew Grenade, both from PIRAC and French Red Cross. So Natalia is the Disaster Risk Management and Climate Change Technical Coordinator, and Matthew is the Environmental and Decarbonization Lead. And I will now hand over to Natalia.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So we conduct a study on waste management capacity in Caribbean. You can put next slide. Thank you. So the study was conducted over the course of 24-25 by the technical department of PIRAC, the French Red Cross delegation based in Guadeloupe. In the presentation, we will introduce the methodology we use to conduct the study, then discuss the methodology developed to based on this study, and exchange about the contrast and the lesson learned we learn about the study. Next. So the study was conducted as part of a regional program named REDI 360/3 Oceans, which aims to make Caribbean territories more environmentally resilient by strengthening disaster preparedness and response capacity. The objective of the study was to map waste management capacity within the Caribbean with a view to include waste management in emergency planning. The aim was to be able to offer operational recommendation for implementing this waste management system. So next. So we cover all the territory with the studies. The objective was to cover the territory in Caribbean, mostly the little island. Next. So to implement the study, we work with we set up with a steering committee responsible for ensuring that the study align with the goal and reality of the humanitarian ecosystem. The steering committee was composed with ECS, CELIMA, IFICR, WREC, and Drone Initiative. Additionally, we established a steering committee to provide technical expertise, and it was also composed by IFICR, the WREC, the Logistic Cluster WREC project, and the Drone Initiative and the SAD. And the method to identify the waste management into operational was more or less the same that we used to collect the information in the field to complete the study. So that we start with we establish a typology of the waste. So the study was focused on the secondary and tertiary packaging. We focus on this packaging because we can manage upstream of distribution and therefore directly managed by the intervention operator. So this packaging include polyethylene bags, polyethylene rope, cardboard paper, plastic film, cardboard box. Then we quantify the waste produced in terms of weight and volume. And this assessment make it possible to determine the scale of waste solution required, packaging, storage, and the budget that will need to be allocated. The third step involved to make an inventory of waste facilitating in the intervention zone and nearby. It's also important to identify the rule governing cross-border movement in case where waste cannot be managed locally. There is a strict regulation depending on the type of waste. And the final step is to integrate waste management into operational planning. Next. So for the collection of the data for the study, so we use the existing resource through the WREC. And also we developed 2 questionnaires, one for the operator, one for the waste management authorities. And we made 2 field visits in St. Lucia and Dominica. We face some challenging to get information because they are small islands and they are often overwhelmed by the change volume of study on solid waste management. There is a lack of time to participate, lack of interest, or reluctance to participate in the study. Next. So the result of the study. So based on the study of the analysis of the last emergency intervention need by the WREC, we were able to have an estimation of the weight and the volume of the waste we produced, and for that we developed an estimated tool based on the IFICR family kits. So on this slide, you have the information related to the waste quantity we produce through the 37 WREC emergency operation. Next. So now you have on this slide the waste estimations tool. So it's a simple tools made on Excel form. So with, for example, you can fill in the green column. So the first green column on the left is the number of items for each item. So you can fill in, and then on the right, the green column, it's the number of items per pallet. You can hide some item on the line also, and then you can have at the final you can have the weight and the volume for each packaging material. So the other case finding we did. So from the study we developed, as I already presented the different steps to implement the waste managing in our emergency operations. So first, it was the first step is to define the type of waste and also the existing infrastructure there is in the area of intervention and the transport regulation. Then is to estimate the volume of the waste that we can produce according to the different scenario. And the other step is to maybe to, if you want, can equip yourself with reusable packaging with a view to reduce packaging waste. Then plan a waste management in the areas through partners and existing local infrastructures, and plan for temporary storage if it's needed according to the different scenario, and then budget the cost that should be included in the emergency intervention. We develop also 11 country fact sheets that have been also produced during the study that describe the procedure to be followed in the event of an intervention. They include regulation on solid waste management, operational waste management at the territory level, operational process including the export process, and the list of contacts for each territories. So on this slide, you can see with the reusable package we have identified, and also based on one emergency intervention led by WREC in Haiti in 2021. We were able to calculate that if we did a waste management, it should cost 2.5% of the total of the cost of the operation. So we realize at this time is something that's manageable to introduce in the budget of emergency intervention. Next. So one other outcome of the study. So we map of waste management operator in the Caribbean. So there is, we know that there is a 16 facility, which 87% of the operator are able to handle PET, HDPE, and 25 of the operator can handle cardboard and paper, and 19 of the operator handle PPP and LDPE. Next. So the issue, the barriers, the challenges, so at organization level, so we identify we need some resource. We need to implement dialogue with a local operator. At internal level, we need also to develop a culture of the waste management in emergency intervention, and also we have to rethink emergency response planning. At territory, country level, landfill and no plastic paperboard recycling in it. Each territory has its own level of maturity also. There is a lack of profitability and adequate infrastructure, and there is a binding regulation on waste export. We learn next. What we learn, so there is a strong interest among humanitarian actors addressing this issue. We need to generalize the approach, mapping, estimation tools, procedures. It's acceptable cost to implement in the emergency response. We develop a methodology, but it's not already tested. It requires investment and research to implement waste management in the emergency planning. And when I'm speaking resource, I mean time and teams. And study results were shared, and we will share soon the tools to calculate the weight and the volume of the waste, and also the sheet, the 11 sheet country sheet we developed can be shared also at the questionnaire. And now we have to put in place a feedback mechanism from the organization that may use the method we developed. And maybe it's needed further investigation to explore the feasibility of easy facilitating waste regulation in emergency, as it's done with the IDRL component. So maybe it can be done with emergency. It really depends on different intervention. Thank you.
Natalia, thanks so much for your presentation. Yeah, it's definitely another type of scenario, how to be prepared to manage waste in an emergency. So I know you applied this study in the Caribbean islands. That's a more seasonal emergency context. Sorry, and it's very interesting. Of course, the outcomes of the study, the tool on how to estimate waste, and I think that you mentioned that has not been put in place, but it would be very interesting to use it. And actually, with Paola, we are planning to test and pilot this tool for some of the emergencies that are ongoing. So probably we will come back to you with more requests. But also I wanted to highlight the interesting approach of this study and the assessment you have done to evaluate or to assess the capacity of waste, absorbing waste from the different islands in the Caribbean, and also the key contingency. There is a kind of per each country or per each island a fact sheet that informs about the recyclers, and also a contingency plan in case the recyclers are not able to manage this waste. So I think that's a very good outcomes or study that combines the information from what is generated and what can be absorbed in order to have the capacity to manage waste without avoiding kind of ad hoc solutions in this specific context. Yeah, I think that I don't know if there is any question from Natalia, but I think that many questions have been answered. And there is a last question that's responding another speaker. Yeah, thanks so much. For now, maybe we can also open the floor if there is, apart from the questions in the chat box that are self-responded, there is some kind of dynamic chat today. If someone else has any question and wants to also raise their hand and just share it with directly to the speakers, you're very welcome. Alice, please, if you can introduce yourself and then just share your question. Thanks.
Thanks, Marta and Paola, for organizing the presentation, and to all the speakers. I'm Alice Occhilupo from the World Food Program, working at HQ level as waste management focal point in the sustainable supply chain team. I had a question for Natalia. Thank you so much for showing all the great work you've done, and also the links and the mapping. I was wondering if for the recycling facilities that you have mapped, you also used like a specific template, and if by any chance those assessments are maybe available to the broader public, because it might be useful also for WREC, for example, to know which company is at standards or not. No, so over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All the study and with all the material we use to conduct the study and collect the information are available on the website of the WREC, so you can find that. And also, we honestly use the tools made by WREC. If I have, let me correct me, Marta, if I has wrong, because I was not the one who conducted the study. So the idea it was to complete a work already done based on the work with the tool already made by the other actors to complete a work ongoing. And then we complete the study. So when we start to collect the data on the field, we realize there is some country where the assessment was not done. So based on the same information already collected in the other country to complete the table, we conduct our tools at the questionnaires, for example, and we went directly on the field to collect the information. But so it's originally we would like to be in the same approach than already done by the other actor.
Okay,
Yeah, you
thank
are
you.
totally right. So the information initially it was the VHA who were mapping all the islands. Then your study came, and then you completed also all the other islands they were not covered. And based on all this information, it was all updated on the WREC mapping of recycling, waste management and recycling infrastructures that I put it in the chat. So all the information from recyclers are there. And then I also put the link of the study that includes the 11 worksheets from the 11 islands with information of specifically from the recyclers and the type of waste that are accepting, and also the contingency plan for your information. If there is any other question, yeah, also please open your mic and share it. I don't think there is anything else.
I can't see at the moment, but yeah, please raise your hand or share it in the chat. And I think, Martha, we had one then.
Sorry?
We also had a question.
Yeah, sí. Yeah, so in the meantime, we also want to share a question. We're thinking about these practices that we've seen that are growing in number, and we see the importance of estimating waste for planning. And we saw like these 3 scenarios for preparedness, for reverse logistics, and also in procurement to directly reduce waste from the scratch. We wanted to ask also to our panelists, how do you think that the humanitarian organizations could standardize these waste management estimations across the different contexts and operations? We have this initial question. I don't know if someone wants to take the answer. How we can standardize some ideas.
Matthew, I think.
I think I can pick it up in terms of standardization. I think it's a very good question, and I think a lot of us has discussed many times standardization within procurement, within a lot of subjects within the supply chain, and it comes finally to waste management. I think that standardization is actually something that would complete some matters that we already do, like having kind of platform where we could discuss, and that's what we are doing through the WREC, or share indicators, and a way also to discuss with suppliers. So for me, standardization is common to these different points. It can be around the specification of the good within the procurement. It can be standard operating procedures or training. I think that the main point for me is that we need to have a common framework, so everyone is working from the same playbook, I would say. And in that sense, I think it cannot happen if we don't have this type of exchange where we discuss the different practice. I think, yes, we have the WREC actually. At the French level also, we have some platform where we can discuss and approach it on a common way, and therefore discuss a little bit more about standardization. And I think this needs to be expanded and kept going on. Definitely, I think that if I looked into how standardization helped in us building the tool, it's tremendous. If the items were not standardized initially, it would have been quite difficult to have information from the supplier, or correct information and aligned information from the suppliers. It would have been very, very difficult to protect this type of anticipation that the tool was looking at. So for me, standardization is a kind of a very transversal approach in the different pillars when we discuss waste management.
Great, thank you, Matthew. I think that maybe Mary, you have a direct not answer, but just to add on what Matthew mentioned.
Yeah, or eventually a comment.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Martin, for all the panelists. It was really insightful to hear you all. To me, standardization is possible as long as you have the volume and the central approach of procurement. And we're kind of in a move where local markets are supported, and we're trying to localize our procurement to support the local economies. And so standardization can be somehow difficult because you have smaller volumes and you're trying to secure your sourcing locally. How is that possible with, and I'm thinking about the Caribbean, where the workload, well, the caseload is relatively small, I think, compared to Venezuela, where you have more caseload and more people to support. How would you approach the localization of procurement versus a standardization, or if not versus, at least how would you set the two together?
Sorry, Marie, I think just to check, you were saying, is that a question that you wanted to check? How do you link both together?
Basically, the tools allowing to measure your waste and so on can be worked out if you have a very centralized supply chain where you're kind of securing your streams of procurement and you have the same product all over. But if you're localizing your procurement and you have, let's say, 5 or 6 different suppliers providing you with elements, the waste are different because the packaging for all suppliers can be different, etc. So how would you approach NGOs? Let's say we are localizing 80% of our procurement, which means we are relying on local procurement, on local markets to serve our sourcing. And so it's demultiplying the number of suppliers you have to look at, the number of framework agreements you have. And so I think the approach is potentially doable at a global scale if you have one very structured supply chain. But how do you think this could be at a smaller scale, usable for smaller organization, which could have a much more localized supply chain? Is it making sense, or am I only speaking to myself?
No,
Yeah,
it makes sense. I'll just maybe, I know there's 2 hands raised. I just wanted to maybe give you an idea of how Marta and I are approaching it, because we're actually trying to do this as a pilot with Jamaica with the current emergency. So yes, we're using actually the tool from PDAC that's been developed after the study. And we don't even have all the information of the relief items that are actually arriving in the country. So what we're doing is we're making assumptions. We're assuming that that the, let's say, packaging specifications are what is on the tool that has been developed. We're assuming it as like a standard, right? It doesn't mean that it's going to be exact, but it's the way that we can actually at least get to some type of volume that for us, I guess, because we're not also looking at it, all to the final detail. But what we're trying to do is basically to go back to the partners and to be able to say, look, this is your estimated waste with this emergency response based on what we know is being sent to the country, and making these assumptions, with these types of specifications. And so this is an approximate volume. So at least with an approximate, it's better than not knowing anything, if that makes sense. So at least with the approximate, they can start taking some type of action, and they will know, if the suppliers that have been mapped have the capacity or not. And then they'll also know, okay, if they don't have the capacity, then what do we do? Like, who do we look for, or what other solution can we find? So that's the objective of that's the way that we've approached it. But yeah, I'm interested to hear what others have to say. And Alicia, you have your hand raised as well.
Yeah, I think Matthew can go first. I kind of lost my line of thoughts. Go ahead, Matthew.
That is definitely not fair. So I make a formal complaint. No, that's fine. Actually, what you mentioned, Paula, was the first thing that came to my mind. Very similar to carbon emission. You make assumption when you don't know. You kind of say, okay, this is more or less a proxy. It's not perfect, but it's definitely help you drive. Then I think I would make personally, as a way I would approach it, I would make a distinction in between producers and retailer at local level. I guess if there are producer, and you said it, Mary, very well, it's very depending also about the maturity of your market. But if you have producers, then definitely your procurement team might have time to discuss or engage with the suppliers ahead of anything. So in your procurement, when you evaluate the different markets, that is something that also can be added to the list. What are the different producers, what are they doing, a cost, blah, 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 the usual things, plus this waste component. But when it's a case of retailer, definitely I think that's where it's starting to be quite painful, because they don't have themselves any idea of what is there. So back either to the proxy or the very harsh way, and I'm looking here at Juan actually, because I think that's what you did. You have to weight everything and take every single bit and pieces of your kits and go through the very harsh way. On that side, I will jump also maybe on a next step and linking it a little bit of data sharing, because once you do it, I think I would urge a lot, even small organization, then to share this. So for another one, not to repeat exactly the same painful way to get this information. And we can also, as a collective effort, consolidate and inform a little bit more as a waste market, in a sense, and waste protection that is existing in these small countries. And now, Alice, you have to face it on your own.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking as you guys speak, and I think it's maybe important to ask ourselves what is the purpose of the standardization and what is it serving. For example, is it for fair reporting? So we decided we all report on primary and secondary packaging and not tertiary, or I don't know, or is it for facilitating the work at downstream level? So for me, I don't see any issue in standardizing at upstream level, because in any case, I mean, it's very rarely that we all procure from the same supplier, have the same type of packaging, the same weights. So just having a table, simple Excel table, as the others have shown, of just the kind of data that we have. So the packaging type, the weight, or I mean, it's not a big issue, I think. But then maybe is it about communicating in the same format to the recyclers? Is it in kg or in units? Is it to aggregate demand? So I think it's those kind of questions that we need to ask ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Alice. Maybe Matthew and Marie, or Marie and Matthew. Maybe you want to answer, Alice.
Eventually, thank you very much, Alice, for your comment. And I think as a follow-up question, the question behind when you have a key player like WFP in Venezuela organizing all a reverse logistics system, like how can we ensure the sector is collaborating and benefiting from the fact that some of us are more advanced, and if not piggybacking on a contract, is to ensure we can aggregate the volumes, the MOQs, to reach out to the waste recyclers. And I think the WREC is an amazing tool to actually engage the community and ensure how can we ensure INGOs, but also local actors can benefit from those services that are set up by big actors, specifically when they're free of charge. It's amazing. So and even getting more money for action afterwards. And I don't know if Paula or Marta, there is room for writing SOPs around that. How can we actually ensure WFP is not the only one supporting the burden of creating an SOP of engaging with the sector? Juan, you've said you were happy to support. I'm sorry, I'm just seizing the ball as it comes. It would be amazing to have some kind of pilot or proof of concept of how the sector can collaborate on that. I don't know what it would take, but IEPG is a group of 37 INGOs. I'm sure we have members in Venezuela, and we can try to look into what will it take to ensure we are making this potentially working for the sector.
Absolutely, Marie, if I can come in and then I'll leave the word, but for sure in those cases where we have LTAs, so long-term agreements in procurement, UN agencies can piggyback. I will have to check if also it's for NGO, which I'm afraid is not. And when it's about logistic contract, yeah, I mean, the only thing is that, yeah, we can support, but it's potentially with a minor cost, but just for the contracting side. Yeah, over to Juan. But I'm totally also available to have more chat and understand how we can do this together, because especially sometimes when we have waste in certain sites, it's not enough volume only from WFP to transport. It would be better if we actually collect volumes also from others, from the same site or around that area, and definitely it would be better for everybody. And we also reduce emissions because we use less transport. So it would be great to work around that. Over.
Maybe Juan,
Well,
you can.
Yes. Thanks, Mary. It's a pleasure. If you want, we can have a bilateral meeting to explain to you in more details how we carry out our project, the difficulties. For example, in the case of Venezuela, WFP in general, it could not be done by piggybacking of our contracts. In the case of Venezuela, WFP globally, it must be done by service provision. And like I said in the chat, we help some sister agencies like FAO and UNHCR to their recycle projects, because they have a service provision agreement with us for warehouse services and transport. Thank you.
Matthew?
Please, Matthew.
Okay. It's just getting back to the previous discussion, and because for me, we discussed a lot about the downstream part of the waste management, this side of it. And I think that I was always very surprised in a sense that we usually call it a supply chain issue. And for me, yeah, but that's we are the only last step of the chain, and a lot of things happen before. So I would say waste topics, it's very supply chain branded, but actually we don't do the spec, we don't design the different, I would say, kits or support that needs to be bring. So these decisions are made long before the items enter the pipeline. And I think if we want also to really have impact on waste and reduce the waste better than manage it, as we are most of the time doing, I think we should push also on an approach on a more eco-design of the items that we are distributing. I think that's a real game changer. And this, we cannot do it without the technical teams, without environmental advisors, without, yes, the supply chain teams, and ultimately users and the different communities that will basically interact after that with the items. So I think that's when the conversation stays splitted in between the different units that we end up reacting to waste instead of reducing it at the source. And I'd just like to, I would say, point this out, because I think it's very important also in our approach to break a little bit this silo and have the other ones understand, I say other ones, the other units, that it is a responsibility of all of us, and not just supply chain at the end of it to manage what was produced along the way.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew. And maybe this also link us with the presentation from Mark, no? That initially the initiative from Palladium also responded to some changes of legislation in the UK. And then they were forced to also adjust to these regulations and start minimizing the waste from the scratch. So I don't know if, yeah, Mark, do you have any learning or any, comment on how to more incentivize or promote this change of the design from the very beginning, no? Or the work you have done with the suppliers in requesting them, changing some of the technical specifications, if you had also, some kind of learning or tips that you would like to share.
How much time do we have left? I mean,
Still we have 7 minutes, but
certainly flag the work we're doing now, which is trying to design out plastic packaging from those items where we can altogether. And yeah, that links to the work that we started in 2019, which was reducing plastic packaging. Suppliers were very receptive to that. In the beginning, there's lots of low-hanging fruit, lots of things that could be taken out, and we could celebrate our gains. And then we got to a point, I think last year, where really everything that was easy to do had been done, and suppliers had the proactive suppliers, which was most of them, had gone out and tried other things and maybe had varying levels of success in removing the balance, and they weren't at that stage minded to do very much more. So that's when we decided that we kind of had to, after 5 years of getting the benefit of the suppliers doing the legwork, we decided to do a bit of legwork ourselves for the last mile, and then we have now starting to come up with completely primary, secondary, and tertiary plastic-free packaging solutions, which I hope I can share with everyone next year. I wanted to mention something on localization as well, as Maria was talking about it. A question, I mean, as I said, we're global buyers, so we don't know a lot about buying things locally. So I suppose I have a question for what that means in terms of manufacture. Is it buying locally things that are manufactured in Pakistan or China? In which case, then there is benefit from the work we're doing globally. You should be able to benefit from that by going through your suppliers and asking the same manufacturers the same questions that we're asking them. Perhaps in that way it would be useful. I had another thought and it's gone out of my head. I'm sorry.
No, and that's a good point, Mark, right? Because we do say we're buying locally, but yeah, the suppliers are not producing it necessarily locally. So if we would have even like with, larger, an idea of what are those larger manufacturers that most organizations are buying items from, or maybe not directly buying from them, but they are the manufacturers, then addressing them would, massively have an impact across the sector. Because I'm sure that, there's a few that are either the same or quite similar suppliers or very well known, and then they just distribute it locally to other suppliers. Marie, you have your hand raised as well.
Yeah, just to come back to Mark on the locally procured, we're definitely looking into something which is most of the time a retailer at local level. Given the lack of privileges the NGOs have at local level, so importation is a big constraint, and ensuring planning and aggregation of needs across different grants that are assigned by NGOs is difficult because the timing is not the same. So having a global pipeline on a yearly basis is something which is very difficult even for big NGOs, or let you imagine for local actors. So basically the constraints faced by NGOs are most of the time not the same. We are looking at creating a metrics relating to KPIs for what is based on retailer or manufacturers within IAPG. This is something which is not existing in the system at the moment as we speak, because you can have a manufacturer which is himself a retailer, so you are like getting into a very, very thin granularity, which is difficult to look into. We're trying, it's not directly related to the manufacturer retailer, but basically today, procurement function in NGOs for the smaller one is designed in a way to face the compliance issues, but not to serve the sustainability. And we're trying to make that move to lower a little bit of the compliance element to ensure sustainability can be a lever to move forward procurement in a strategic perspective. But it's difficult because we have not removed the compliance aspect yet. So it's a very short intro, but happy to discuss it if you have ideas to look into this and how to make local procurement more sustainable and how to support smaller NGOs to actually move forward with this retailer, manufacturer for big markets and so on. Happy to discuss it further anytime.
Thank you, Marie. I know we have a very good discussion. Just conscious of time, we only have 2 minutes left, so I think we'll have to wrap up now. But of course, if anybody has other questions, ideas, comments, I think we can, this conversation needs to continue, right? This was just an opportunity to have a quick discussion, but yes, we can continue with the topic as well. And then I guess I wanted just to thank very much our panelists today for your time and for preparing, for this session and sharing all your journey through waste estimation and the learnings that you have, as well as tools. And I would appreciate if anybody has questions that you can be open to also have them reach out to you and learn more from what you've been doing. Maybe just to give you a quick update on kind of next steps or what we have within the WREC. So we do have 3 more global info sessions happening from now till the end of the year. The next one is next week, and it's on automating carbon accounting, and that one is WFP will be presenting their EcoDash tool. So that will be quite interesting. It's not just only to measure CO2 emissions, but it can also measure waste associated to each operation. And then we have one on reverse logistics on the 27th of November, and one on advancing sustainable transportation modes on the 10th of December. So I think Martha's just shared the registration link. So please, join in if you are able to, and also share with others that you think might be interested. And finally, we would really, really appreciate if you could share your feedback on this session. So we'll send you, I don't know if it's already in the chat, but we can add it. Sorry. I didn't see. Yeah, only 5 minutes of your time. It would help us learn what you liked from the session, what you think could be better, and basically help us for these future info sessions that we have. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time, for your participation, and we hope to see you very soon. And have a great rest of your week. Sorry.